Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined with a fascinating discussion lined up as we dive into the latest operational update from Conroy Gold and Natural Resources. Joining us to break it all down are Senior Geologist Kevin McNulty and CFO Cathal Jones. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
So Conroy Gold has been making significant progress with its Discs of Gold project, particularly at Clontibret. The relogging program for the drill core is well advanced, with a 3D geological model now under construction. This work is key to unlocking the next stage of investment as discussions with potential strategic and financial partners continue. Looking ahead to 2025, the company is also preparing an application for Clontibret's recognition as a strategic minerals project under the European Critical Raw Materials Act, something that could have major implications given the growing importance of antimony. So Kevin, let's start with you. Can you give us an overview of what these latest developments mean for Conroy Gold and how they fit into the broader vision for the Discs of Gold project?
Hi, Phil. I suppose really what we've been doing is going back to basics a bit in our relogging program in Clontibret. We're well advanced in it now. As I say, we're sort of finishing up the portable XRF data. But really what it has done is enable us as a team, myself, Andrew and Paul, to look at all the core in detail and bring a sort of uniform and consistent approach to all that data and information that we're getting. And now we're starting to build that geological model. And we're really going to use that model to help us target where our next drilling should be and our next program, and particularly looking at where we could target deeper drilling to seek those higher grade gold mineralization zones at depth. Because we believe, we've already seen there's multiple styles of mineralization in and around Clontibret, with gold arsenic, gold associated with stibnite as well there. And really, we believe, as I say, it's an analogy with Fosterville, and we want to be able to target those high grade free gold mineralization at depth.
Absolutely, yeah. What I want to understand is how has this sort of relogging program, which is by all accounts has been pretty extensive. You're looking at the RNS, you talk about how frequently you're doing these sort of PXRFs, and how has that relogging program helped refine your understanding of the Clontibret deposit? Have you learned anything new? Has there been anything there, any developments?
Yeah, it's basically taking all this information together and putting it on the sections. As has been done. There's subtle things that we've noticed that the stockwork mineralization is slightly different than what we had originally envisaged. There is subtleties in the geometry of the overall deposit in relation to the folding of the geology. And I'm sorry, getting into a bit technical now, but you can start to see some of the structures in relation to that. And the PRXF gives us a whole series of information. It's chemical. It's like a point, and it gives you chemical analysis along the core. So you can start to see alteration zones and things like stibnite and arsenic and those type of halos come out. And they are really used as arrow indicators as you model those to where you want to go as your fluid corridors. So they sort of direct you in the areas where you want to drill. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that springs to mind looking at the news is we've recently seen China has implement export bans or controls on antimony. And I saw, I want to really understand what role does the antimony play in the project's economics, and how significant is its potential designation as a strategic raw material?
Very, very good. Yeah, no, absolutely. The antimony is involved with the mineralization. You get gold associated with antimony in Clontibret. That's how the whole area started out. It was actually originally an old antimony mine before gold was even known about. And it wasn't until the 1950s that they pumped out those old antimony workings and found gold there. Now, we hadn't really focused on the antimony very much. We've been very much focused on the gold. But one of the things we're starting to do now is build towards an antimony model and to build towards an antimony resource. We know there's antimony there. We know even in the concentrates, when we did our PEA, we saw some antimony that would be reported in the concentrates, but we've never modeled that economically. So I would think it's going to have a significant effect on the economics. But as I say, like the PEA was done quite a while ago. The gold price was down at 1,000, was 1,400. It was done at then, or in around that. You're looking at a gold price now of $2,900 per ounce. So that's nearly double the gold price, and I can assure you the costs definitely haven't doubled in that period of time that we would expect. So it's a very robust project, Clontibret on its own, and that doesn't even take into account what we're seeing along trend, and some of the new discoveries we have, where we're seeing in the Skull Martin gold trend, where we're seeing visible gold in outcrop, as when you came to see, like sort of huge slabs of rock peppered with gold. Like it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I guess another question I've got is, obviously, we know that Demir spent a lot of euros, millions of euros in actually sinking holes into the ground under the old joint venture program. What have you gleaned from those, the core that you took from those various drill holes around Ireland?
Oh, we've taken quite a lot. One of the best holes that we got in Clontibret was part of the joint venture. It was one of the original holes done there, where we got nearly 100 meters at nearly a gram a ton. And then also, like 7 kilometers up the road from that, we've got significant intersections in the Clay Lake area. And our belief now is that these areas, these structural corridors, are connected. And again, this is all part of what we're seeing now as a sort of major, area for exploration targeting. So they've really helped us. Again, I think now going to the PDAC, when we don't have any other joint venture partner, will enable us to be able to talk very freely to a lot of other companies there. And as I say, it's a pretty exciting time in the company.
So, Kevin, in terms of the discs of gold, how big could Clontibret be in terms of it? I mean, and I'm intrigued why we called it discs of gold. Do you believe that the system is set up as discs, or but how big could Clontibret be? We've got 512 ounces, I think, joked at the minute, based on the new drilling and stuff that has been done recently in terms of the work. Is that going to increase?
I would hope so, but I can't give you figures yet. But yeah, we have 500,000 ounces already, and that's on about 20% of the area. We have significant gold intersected outside where the resource area is. And then we have what we believe is potential at depth in relation to free gold in a Fosterville scenario. To give you an idea of that, Fosterville, I think, was like a 2 million ounce deposit or something along those lines. But when they started getting those high grades, that went to another 8 million ounces onto that. So you're looking at, in a very small area at 50 odd grams a ton, they added significant amounts of ounces onto it. So how big could Clontibret grow? Very big. If we get a similar scenario at depth in Clontibret as we see as seen in Fosterville.
So you think that by drilling down, the potential is that the gold per grams will increase up to a certain level, obviously going down the way?
That's what we're doing. Yeah, we're targeting. We believe that it's a similar to Fosterville. So Fosterville started off, it was about 2 to 4 grams open pit operation, but then when you got to 800 meters depth, the grades went up to 50 to 60 grams a ton, and they added 3-4 million ounces just in the Swan Zone alone. So yeah, no, I think Clontibret has that type of potential at depth.
And geologically, why did that happen? Why did it not come further up?
Geologically, it's related to how the mineralization precipitates out. And that's what we see. We see a similar type of halo. So the gold associated with arsenic in Clontibret that they had in Fosterville. We also see the gold associated with a late stage stibnite, which we see in Clontibret as well. But if you can sort of imagine it like I'm going to give you an analogy now. You're going to have a good laugh at this one. I'll give you an analogy of a Cadbury's cream egg. Okay. So you have the chocolate on the outside, and then you got the white bit, and then you got that nice little yellow center bit. Okay.
Yes.
So if you can imagine we're the chocolate on the outside, and we're seeing the arsenic halo area. So we're sort of sitting on the chocolate on the outside. We're starting to see some of the white stuff, which is basically the antimony halo. And what we really want to do is get to the yellow bit where that free gold is. Okay. Even though we're seeing gold where we are, but it's that yellow key core central bit that we're aiming for. The egg isn't basically vertically down. The egg is tilted in some way. So that's why it becomes a little bit more tricky just to target that yellow zone. So if you drill off, you could hit a lot of
Don't get him started on chocolates, Kevin. I mean, we had a debate at the weekend. All he'll be saying is that it's reduced in size.
Yeah. The cream eggs are much smaller than they used to be.
As long as the
bigger than they
resource
were.
isn't reducing in size as well,
No, there's hopefully no fear of
And
that.
I want to know whether you're a bite your cream egg in half man, or are you going to just bite the top off and lick it out? This is the question, isn't it? But anyway, sorry,
That's
but
for
we
another
digress.
podcast.
That's for another podcast, is right. Yeah, no, that's not a bad analogy, really, ultimately, especially as it's golden color as well. But there are sparkles, if you like, of gold within the white, obviously, as well, and maybe even in the chocolate. If you want to be strictly true. But I haven't been there, and we walked down obviously to the stream the very first time you took us there, if you remember, and we went to the opening of the antimony mine. From the point of view of that resource, how much of that resource do you think was mined, and how much of it do you think is potentially still available? And is that going to go to depth, or you think that's more a lower lying asset that would be there?
No, it's going to definitely go to depth. We've seen it at depth in the drilling, and we've seen it below, obviously, where the workings are. The workings were very shallow, and not very much was extracted. So they go down about 15 meters. So the actual shaft goes down about 15 meters depth, and then a drift goes along about 30 odd meters, about 35 meters, I think it is, for the Tully Buck, and it's very similar for the Lisclasson. So they were chasing these veins, but they didn't mine out a very significant amount. But what is crucial is where you get these antimony bits, you get very high grades. So back in those workings, we saw when they went back channel sample them, you had up to 30 odd grams of ton recovered in gold from some of those back channel samples. So extremely high grades associated with the antimony. And again, that's the exact same thing that happens in Fosterville. Where you get the gold antimony is where you get the higher grades occurring. And we believe we're just starting to pick on it. So it's chasing and looking at that antimony at depth is where we want to go. And that's where we want to be focusing our drilling.
And what sort of is standard for antimony in terms of a grade? Is it a percentage, or is it grams per ton, or what's?
Yeah, well, we'll be mining it out anyway. So it'll be a byproduct as part of the gold. So it'll basically come in as part of the gold. So we haven't done the economics on it yet, but I would think, it's whatever's already being mined out as part of the gold system will be reporting in to it.
Would that be a credit alongside the concentrate then within it?
Yes,
as a lot of these miners.
Correct.
But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is where gold is, a good gold production is 2 grams per ton. Antimony's, I presume, much higher than that.
Yeah, I presume so. It's a couple of percentage. I would think. I couldn't give you exact details, but as I say, it's part of the gold, so we'll be taking it out.
Yeah. No, it's part of everything that's coming out, but it's almost like a copper reading, if you like. It's going to be 1% copper, 2% antimony,
correct,
antimony, or something like that. It's not going to be 10 grams per ton, that's for sure, because there's no point in chasing it if that's the case. Yeah. Okay, so Cathal, coming to you then, I'm coming back to you as well, Kevin, because I want to talk about Clay Lake and the connection, because that's important as far as I'm concerned. Cathal, what is happening then in terms of Conroy and their wish to attain another partner or finance to really progress this Clontibret and basically get some gold out of them their hills?
So we have, since the departure of our joint venture partners, but however, it's been a constant since before we brought them in. We've been actively discussing with others, and one of the things which was a trend through the participation of DEX in the joint venture was the potential scale of the district in terms of it being a new gold district, and what that would mean in terms of exploration experience and scale and experience in exploring and opening up new districts, what the needs would be, what companies' needs would be of their joint venture partner. And that became a recurring theme. And it's something that we were exploring during the good work that DEX were doing, was the possibility of bringing in a third partner with that experience. That didn't work out in the period, but it actually meant that we were talking to people well in advance, and we never stopped talking to people over the last number of years. So we have, obviously, since the midsummer of last year, our data room has been refreshed with the information we have. We're constantly updating it with the information that the guys are working on at the moment in terms of logging, and there are people accessing that data room. In terms of different types of interest, there are potential strategic partners from a financial perspective, and also potentially interested joint venture partners that are already industry players, whether it be whatever scale they are. But we are talking a significant district that needs a significant partner, and the people that are talking to us are significant and capable of providing that significant assistance that we do need. That's active and will continue to be. I feel like a long playing record on this, Kevin, every time we speak, or Phil, that you just don't know when it's going to land, because you have to work to other people's timelines when it comes to closing. What's in a company's budget for this year, what's in a company's budget for next year, the gaps that can suddenly open up in a company's budget in this year because another project doesn't quite go the direction they wanted it, or something gets delayed, can suddenly bump you up that list just as much as be pushed out. So we're very much working with the people that are in there and trying to attract more people in.
And how has Maureen helped you, and Mariam helped you in that cause?
Well, I think the relationships that Maureen has formed in the first instance, Maureen and Professor Conroy, over many years in the industry, has meant there's been a steady stream of follow-on phone calls that have been coming over the course of the last year. People who had conducted site visits before were well aware of the project, are touching base, interested, to see that we're back with 100% control over our own destiny. What makes, I suppose, one of the things that they're aware they're in that there's a competitive environment, and we are actively looking to move this on. So we're not going to wait forever for the person that will give us the absolutely best deal. It will have to be the absolutely best deal at the time that we're looking at it, because we're not into waiting forever. And forever could be 2029. We want to see something move on. We want to see ourselves in a position where we'll be mining, in the foreseeable future. Professor Conroy wanted to be mining during his lifetime. While he didn't intend passing away as quickly as he did, I'd love to reach the age that he did. But certainly we want to see this in relatively short order. And it can be achieved.
So what are the options then? You have a joint partner. I mean, is there an option just to sell the whole thing, as in 100% lock, stock and barrel, and you just take a royalty, or is that
there's always
just
an option to do something lock, stock and barrel if the money is right, from a shareholder's perspective. But it would have to be, and it's difficult for somebody to justify, in the context of the current market capitalization of the company, a price that behoves the asset of the company right now.
No, there's a complete disconnect there,
so
as we know.
It's a big mismatch. It's really disproportionate. We wouldn't see ourselves, nor would our significant shareholders see ourselves selling out at a price in any way comparable to the current range. It would have to be many, many, many multiples of it for it to make sense. That being said, if the right offer comes in, one always open to considering it, but that would have to be a very significant one. We really want to get investment in, and that is the industry. Let's be fair. That's the industry model. Realistically, they need to keep, if a partner's coming in, they need an operator on the ground that has the relationships that's capable of delivering on it. Effectively buying something, taking it on, letting older relationships go in, effectively take off into the sunset and hoping that you'll get a mine over the line. That's not going to happen. It's not practical. So
they need you as much as you need them.
Exactly.
Without doubt.
And we want to help. We want them to come in and drive the value with us, show and prove that this project is the project that we all believe it can be.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm going back to you, Kevin, then, in terms of this Clontibret Clay Lake thing. They are about, I think, as the crow flies, around 7 kilometers apart. So do you believe this is part of the same gold area, if you like? And my second question is, does that mean Clontibret is the end of it, or it might go further than Clontibret, the other way?
Yes, definitely part of the same gold system. They form along the same structure. You have a stockwork occurring in Clontibret, and then up the road in Clay Lake, you have a similar stockwork on a similar trend related to the geology. Yes, it's definitely forms part of the same thing. And as you say, that's 7.5 kilometers up strike. But also down then to the southwest, we have Glenish, which is an actually bigger anomaly than Clontibret. And we've hardly scratched the surface there. We've done a couple of drill holes and whatever else. Gold seen there as well. And yes, that's probably also part of it. And then you continue all the way down the trend. This is why we're saying this is significant. It's a regional gold trend. It's a district scale gold trend within our license area. And that forms part of an overall, area which we see as basically a transatlantic structure that stretches all the way across into Canada, where you have those pretty major deposits occurring. So it's all part of the same structural corridor, and we've got a big chunk of that structural corridor in Ireland.
So you think it's actually longer than the 7 kilometers then from Clay Lake
Yes,
to Clontibret? You think
I
it
do.
carries on down south of where
Yes,
Clontibret is now? And this
yes,
is without talking about the other strike of gold, which is the visible gold that
yeah.
we saw in the name escapes me, but you can remind us now. What is that one all about then?
I think these are parallel structures. So you have a whole series of these parallel structures, and it can be seen in Newfoundland. It can be seen in Ireland. You have basically the Dalradian structures, which, as I say, and it's all related to the closure of the Iapetus Ocean at the time. So you have all these series of parallel structures that were mineralized as part of this closure event. The initial stage is formed, the mineralization, and then you have the main event where we are in the Orlock Ridge Fault and the Skull Martin trend. Crean Kill is the area that you were talking about there, where we have the visible gold and outcrop. But again, there we're seeing multiple styles of gold mineralization occurring there. We're seeing free gold present in outcrop, which is a really rare thing to do. And then you're seeing gold associated with pyrite and quartz veins there, and also some gold associated with arsenopyrite present there. So multiple styles. And that, as I say, so far the anomaly in that area, we've stretched it for about 24 kilometers, but it probably goes even further than that. I would think as well. So, but we're seeing some interesting targets in our box target area. That we're seeing some pretty high values in the soils there as well. So lots more to be found in the area. So as I say, it's a parallel structure to the Orlock Ridge Fault, the Skull Martin fault zone trend. And each of these, it seems to be mineralized, and they're deep-seated structures. And it's not surprising. The fluids will be at depth, and they'll come up these structures. And then when the fluids interact either with the wall rock or with cooler groundwater, the mineralization events will occur.
So do you anticipate that there could be a further one either side of Clontibret or not? Or you think
Yes,
it's likely to be two?
I think we'll probably find out over time that Clontibret and Clay Lake are connected, and I think you'll probably find also that Clontibret and Glenish are connected. And that's what we need to do: is we need to drill between these areas, build up the resources in relation to along the stockwork zone at Clontibret and along stepping out from the stockwork zone in Clay Lake. And we started to do some of that in Clay Lake, and as I say, as we started to move towards Clontibret, the grades were increasing. We were seeing, we were getting 40 meters there at 1.2 grams a ton, and some pretty nice intersections coming out. So yeah, we have zones there where we're getting 100 meters of gold intersection, longest gold zones in Ireland, and similarly in Clontibret we're getting 100-meter intersections, nearly a gram a ton. So it's very similar.
But I think people need to understand, and maybe you can explain. If you've got an area of 7 kilometers and you're saying it could be 24 kilometers, but let's not overdo it. 7 kilometers long by 1 or 2 kilometers wide, which is Clay Lake in itself, I think, anyway. But
Yep.
let's go further than that and go to the Skull Mountain thing as well. The actual volume of material, even if you could turn around and say that this was 0.5 grams per ton or 1 gram per ton overall, this would be literally tens of millions of ounces of gold, surely.
Yeah, world-class deposit. I think I've talked to you about the mine that I worked on in Ghana, which is the Teberebi gold mine, which is a world-class gold mine, gold deposit. And that range, the grades range from about, in around one to 1.5 grams a ton. The mining widths were from 20 to 30 meters wide. And the strike length of that was about 3 kilometers long, in the section that we were looking at. This was in the Tarkway conglomerates. That was a world-class deposit. We were producing 350,000 ounces of gold per annum. I think they're still producing. This is back in the 1990s. They're still producing there now, and they're producing.
You were only 10 then, Kevin. What are you talking about?
And they're still producing there now, and they're producing 600,000 ounces per annum out of that. Prolific amounts of gold, and that's the scale of what we're talking about here. It's a new gold district, not just a mine.
I just don't think anybody, a few people obviously have because they're big shareholders in it, but I just don't think anybody has got the magnitude of this with gold sitting at 2,900 and could go sky high. Even if gold was at 2,000, it would be a phenomenal situation. But with the socio-economic issues that we've got and the macroeconomic problems that we've got in the world, gold is going to be in demand over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And this is a massive project.
And it's already underwritten by a fairly significant, it's a 500,000 ounce resource already with really good gold intersections outside that area.
Yeah.
And that 500,000 ounces, 60% of that is in indicated. That's the higher category.
We were having this discussion on the Sunday roast, and we basically said that at $2,900 gold, would an in-ground resource be worth $100 an ounce in today's market? I think it can't be far off it, at $100 an ounce, which would value your 512 ounces at $51 million, at $100 an ounce.
And as I say, when we were looking at the economics, we were looking at the economics at $1,372 an ounce. We're in a different world now in terms of gold price. And, we were looking at a sub $1,000 cash cost to basically take those ounces out of the ground.
I'd probably add something to that, Kevin, also that, you're talking about a potential in-ground value. Now you can, putting a number on that is an art as well as a science.
Yeah.
But it's potential in-ground value in a location that's experienced from a mining perspective with a local authority that has just permitted a mine.
Yep.
Close to infrastructure, close to everything. You've a lot of boxes ticked in Monaghan where our resource is. It's not somewhere that you need to start from scratch in terms of either local authority education or actually the building of infrastructure, etc., required for a mine. And it can't. I suppose the one thing that struck me since I've gotten involved in this is also the size of the veins that you're chasing. And this is as a layman, you're not necessarily chasing something that when we talk 500,000 ounces, you're talking about chasing a vein that's in widths of meters. It's not in widths of kilometers, even though we talk about surface anomalies that are huge. So it's really interesting to see the way that this can potentially happen. Obviously, you'd be starting off, and Kevin can go into this in much more detail, with an element of open pit. But the deeper you go, the level of surface footprint is relatively minimal. In the context of the things that we're talking about in terms of kilometers, etc. So there's a lot that we can do, and a lot that's exciting about the project. When people talk about projects that are valued, when you look at the market cap compared to the number of ounces they have, if you're in Africa or you're elsewhere, you're often in areas that are significantly underdeveloped in terms of infrastructure, etc. We don't have any of those issues, and we're lucky enough that we're from a country that has mining experience, good quality mining experience, both in country and our exports that are looking to come back. It's an anecdote, but it's funny that one of the locations where we've found one of our targets is actually built on a farm where two of the children are mining in Australia. I think you were there.
Yes, absolutely. I
And the
remember
farmer
that.
would
Yeah.
only love to see
Yeah.
and to see those guys come home.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just want to move on to, obviously, we're in February now, and I know you guys have got the PDAC coming up in Canada, obviously in March next month. But I mean, you've talked about obviously unlocking the next stage of investment and discussions with potential strategic and financial partners. But what can potential investors and listeners expect in terms of key milestones for the remainder of 2025?
Well, I think the one that everybody's interested in when we ring the bell for a joint venture partner or a large strategic investor, I don't know is the answer to that. However, it could be in Q2, it could be in Q3, and it could be in Q4. Chances are it will be this year. We believe it will be. We're talking to people that are very interested. It's about converting their interest and then fitting in with their schedule, and that schedule being in the current year. But we do believe that the discussions that we're having are sufficiently advanced that we can be confidently saying we'll have something done in this year. On the geological side, the guys will be, as the operational update says, they're going to be working through the resource model. And that's again, one of the things to stress is the joint venture discussions that we have going on, and strategic investor discussions that we have going on. All of this work that Kevin is doing and the team are feeding into that, but it's not dependent on it. This is work that would be done by somebody that was coming in anyway. It was the next natural phase of work to be done. So, that'll be continuing. Kevin, do you want to maybe just give a little sense for timing in terms of the bits of work there?
Yeah, we're obviously, we're trying to get as much done now, start the geological model and have a good handle on things and being able to show some bits of information out at PDAC. And then when we come back, we will obviously be still focused on some of the lithological logging in relation to Clontibret. And then from there, once we have that fully done, but we've sort of got the core area of that already pretty much mapped out and logged from the work that myself, Andrew and Paul have been doing. And then from there, we'll be going on to some of the other areas like Clay Lake, probably next on the agenda in relation to that. But Clay Lake, we already have pretty good handle on it. Quite a lot of the core has already got XRF on it. So it's less of a mammoth task, as I would say, that the Clontibret was. It still needs to be done to be put together. But Clontibret, there was, as I say, a lot of the holes were very historic. They were in feet. We don't really work in feet. We work in metric. So we had to convert all those bits and pieces. And yeah, so it was quite a lot involved in it. But we're getting there. And as I say, it has produced quite a lot of good information and it is really getting us focused in where we should be targeting our next phase for when we have the funds in a joint venture partnership for the drilling going forward.
Yeah, I think people hopefully are going to wake up and see what you've got. I think the whole sector, I suppose, has been absolutely slammed over the last year or two, or so probably 3 years, in terms of, cash being available. But at the end of the day, these big companies cannot not look at projects that effectively could have a tier 1 gold project within them at this sort of level of gold. It just doesn't make any sense that somebody's not going to willingly chance 10,000 or 10 million pounds now to say, yeah, well, we can get a mine on Clontibret if we spend this money. Now, obviously, it costs more than 10 million to put a mine there, but you will be in a position to know exactly what you have to do, probably with 10 million quid, and something that will be worth, hundreds of millions of pounds of gold. So, yeah, we wish you luck, and good luck at PDAC. You can send me a message, Cathal, when they send you the check in the post. Huh?
I don't think they operate that way anymore.
No, do they not? Okay.
On that note, we'll say Kevin McNulty and Cathal Jones of Conroy Gold and Natural Resources, thanks very much for appearing on the podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.